There is a moment repeated hundreds of times every NBA season where an arena fills with noise, the lights go up, and somewhere across the city, a house goes quiet. The players are gone. The staff is gone. The security cameras are on, but nobody is watching the feeds in real time. And somewhere, someone already knew that was going to happen. Not because they had inside information, not because they had a contact at the team, because they read the schedule, the publicly available, free to access, printed on the team website schedule. This is the story of how an NBA tip-off became an alarm clock for the wrong kind of people. Starting in September 2024, a series of burglaries began hitting the homes of NBA players across the United States.
Tonight, professional athletes on high alert after the NBA issued this warning to its basketball players nationwide, saying the FBI is now connecting home burglaries targeting athletes and other high net worth individuals to South American criminal gangs.
Not random, not opportunistic, not the kind of crime where someone notices a light has been off for a few days. These were surgical, coordinated, timed to the minute. Karl-Anthony Towns lost more than $100,000 in a single night.
A massive crime spree spanning several states targeting the biggest names in sports. Karl-Anthony Towns also a victim, both losing luxury jewelry the same weekend in Medina.
Bobby Portis came home to find his safe cracked open, his watches gone, his jewelry gone. Over $1.48 million vanished from inside his own walls. Morant lost close to $1 million in watches and luxury bags. Luka Doncic, $30,000 in jewelry. Conley Jr. hit while he was mid-game, mid-quarter, mid-play. And here's the detail that changes the entire story. The people doing this weren't local criminals with a lucky tip. They were an organized group, later identified as Chilean nationals, operating across state lines with a methodology so precise it could have been a corporate playbook.
On the end of a quiet cul-de-sac in the Lost Creek neighborhood north of Pewaukee Lake, police say these three men from Chile broke a glass patio door of a home and stole 100 pieces of jewelry back in October while the family was away. Prosecutors say the three are in the country illegally from Chile.
Drones for surveillance. Wi-Fi jammers to disable smart home systems. Scouts who sometimes posed as delivery drivers, wandering neighborhoods in the hours before tip-off, getting familiar with driveways, gates, side entrances. The NBA schedule was their calendar. The luxury watch on a player's wrist in a post-game interview was their product catalog. By the time federal prosecutors filed charges in February 2025, 7 Chilean nationals had been indicted. And among the evidence photos released was an image that tells you everything you need to know about who these people were and how seriously they took what they were doing. One of the suspects posing for a photo holding a stolen safe, grinning, wearing a Kansas City Chiefs shirt. More than 90% of the people watching this video right now are not subscribed. If you follow this channel because you care about what happens to watches and the people who wear them, subscribe, hit the bell, and share this video with one person. Now let's continue. To understand how this scheme worked, you need to understand something about what NBA players actually own. The watch culture inside professional basketball is unlike almost anything else in American sports. These are young men, many of whom grew up with very little, now earning 8- and 9-figure contracts, and they spend accordingly. A Richard Mille on the wrist of a starting point guard isn't unusual. Neither is a full Jacob & Co. piece, a Patek Philippe, an Audemars Piguet. Walk through an NBA locker room before a game, and you are looking at a rolling exhibition of some of the most expensive watches on the planet. Some players own collections worth millions. Multiple pieces stored at home, not in bank vaults, not in professional storage facilities. At home. There are practical reasons for that. These are objects people want to access. You want to choose your watch for the day the way you choose your outfit. You want to open a drawer and see your collection. The idea of your watches sitting in a vault somewhere across town defeats the entire purpose of owning them. So they stay home. And home, in the case of most NBA players, is a large house in a suburb outside the city. A house that is visibly expensive, visibly secure, and completely empty every time there is a home game. That last part is where the vulnerability lives. And the group responsible for these burglaries understood it with a clarity that was almost admirable in the worst possible way. The mechanics of the operation were not crude. This was not a group of people driving slowly past houses and looking for open windows. The alleged scheme involved advanced surveillance, including the use of drones to map properties, identify camera positions, and assess entry points without ever setting foot on the property. Wi-Fi jammers were reportedly deployed to knock out smart home devices before anyone made a move. Scouts on the ground, sometimes dressed as delivery drivers, gave the whole operation a layer of ordinary cover that is genuinely hard to counter. A man carrying a package down your street does not look like a threat. He looks like Tuesday. But the most important tool in this entire operation was free, required no technology, and was available to anyone with an internet connection. The NBA schedule. Game dates, tip-off times, arena locations. Every piece of information needed to calculate exactly when a player would be across town and unavailable to respond was right there, posted months in advance, accessible to tens of millions of people. The group allegedly used this to plan each job with surgical timing. They weren't guessing, they knew. This is the part of the story that sits with you, because it exposes a structural problem that no amount of home security can fully solve. The schedule cannot be hidden. It is the product. The NBA sells the schedule. Teams promote it. Fans plan their lives around it. Players have to be there. And that means that for every home game, a known address is predictably unoccupied at a known time. That is a vulnerability baked so deep into the nature of professional sports that it is almost impossible to architect around. Karl-Anthony Towns was playing basketball when his home was entered. He was not negligent. He was not careless. He was doing his job in front of 20,000 people while someone else was doing theirs. The symmetry of that is genuinely unsettling. Bobby Portis' situation illustrated something else entirely. The people behind these burglaries were not just opportunists grabbing whatever was visible. They were prepared. When they encountered a safe at the Portis residence, they didn't leave it. They cracked it. That requires either equipment brought specifically for the purpose or skill acquired through practice or both. The $1.48 million taken from that property included watches and jewelry, exactly the category of asset that is portable, valuable, and extremely difficult to trace once it enters the secondary market. This is the uncomfortable reality about luxury watches as targets. A stolen Richard Mille or Audemars Piguet is not like a stolen television. A television has a model number, a serial number that shows up on insurance claims and pawnshop databases. A watch, especially one bought privately or as a gift, may have incomplete paperwork. The secondary market for high-end watches, particularly through informal or overseas channels, has enough volume and opacity that moving a stolen piece is not nearly as difficult as it should be. The people behind these burglaries understood that. They weren't stealing electronics. They were stealing the most portable, most liquid, least traceable form of expensive property that exists. Watches were the point. The watches were always the point. The federal indictment handed down in February 2025 named 7 Chilean nationals as defendants, and the investigation revealed something that reframed the entire story. This was not a local criminal network that had identified a profitable target. This was one arm of a broader pattern of organized burglary crews, sometimes called South American theft groups in law enforcement documentation, that have been operating across the United States for years. They move between cities, between states, between targets, with a speed and organizational discipline that makes traditional police response extremely difficult. By the time a jurisdiction has enough evidence to build a case, the crew has often moved on. The NBA player homes were not an accident of geography or opportunity, they were a chosen vertical. High-value assets, predictable vacancy windows, limited daytime foot traffic in upscale neighborhoods, and victims whose public profiles made it easy to confirm identities, confirm addresses, and confirm schedules without ever speaking to anyone who knew them. Morant losing close to $1 million in watches and bags is not just a financial loss, it is a specific kind of violation. The watches he lost were not abstract investments. They were objects he had chosen, bought, worn, cared about. The same is true for every player on this list. These are not warehoused assets, they are personal. And the people who took them knew that because they had done enough research to know exactly what was inside those homes before they walked in. It is worth pausing on what that research actually looks like, because it does not require criminal sophistication to pull off. A player walks into a post-game press conference wearing a watch. Someone in the watch community identifies it within hours. The reference, the approximate value, the rarity. That information gets shared, discussed, screenshotted. The same player posts on Instagram at a charity event, same watch, different angle. Now you have a second confirmation of ownership. Over time, if you are paying attention, you can build a reasonably detailed picture of what a specific person owns, what they wear regularly, and roughly what it is all worth. None of that requires hacking. None of it requires a source. It is all just there, accumulated across public platforms by enthusiasts who have no harmful intent whatsoever. That is what makes this so complicated to talk about. The watch community's enthusiasm for identifying and discussing what athletes wear is genuine. It is the same curiosity that drives conversations on this channel. But it also means that the collective knowledge base of collectors and enthusiasts online is, unintentionally, an incredibly detailed intelligence resource for anyone who wants to use it that way. The gap between appreciation and exploitation is not a wall. It is a door. And it turns out some people know how to open it. There is a broader conversation here that the industry has been slow to have. Auction houses are increasingly requiring provenance documentation for high-value pieces. Serial number registration has improved. Some brands have introduced systems that allow watches to be flagged as stolen, making them harder to service or resell through authorized channels. These are meaningful steps, but the secondary market is large, global, and operates across jurisdictions that do not always communicate with each other. A watch stolen in Memphis in October can be in a private collection in another country by December. The infrastructure for stopping that is still catching up to the reality of how these crimes actually move. What happened between September 2024 and the February 2025 indictments is a story about watches, yes. But it is really a story about the price of making certain things visible. About the gap between what a watch signals and what that signal attracts. About a group of people who looked at the same publicly available information that millions of fans look at every week and saw something completely different in it. 7 people have been federally indicted. The investigation is ongoing. Some of the stolen property may never be recovered. And the players whose homes were entered have had to reckon with something that no security system fully prepares you for. The realization that being known, being successful, being visible, has a cost that nobody puts in the contract. And somewhere on the internet right now, a new NBA season schedule is posted. Tip-off times, arena locations, every game listed out through the end of the year. Completely free, completely public, exactly as it should be. That is what makes this so difficult to fix. If you want to keep up with stories like this one, subscribe to the channel. There are more watch stories coming that you will not want to miss. And we will see you in the next one.